Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Dan. So for today's video, I have a fairly obscured, low-budget feature to talk about today, folks. Yes, obviously, it's a blast from the past, which, of course, is something I've done before. Quite obviously on this channel, I've talked about lots and lots of old movies. Anyway, a good chunk of them, if not the vast majority of movies, are pretty unknown, and this is the film we're talking about, the Steel Claw. So okay, which again is another World War II drama type movie again. So here we are, I suppose. Supposed to be like a wartime set kind of a thing set in the Philippines during World War II. So it's kind of like an action adventure kind of a thing going on here. Anyway, of course, as always, let's talk about the plot, shall we? So here we go. So okay, we get to see that there's this captain, this individual, John, whom is this Marine. He's stationed in the Philippines. Let's just say he loses a hand in an accident. So there's that. And it's almost discharged from the corps. And then there's this American general who's held captive by these Filipino guerrillas behind Japanese lines. So yeah, it gets pretty damn dramatic right from the get-go. As it should, because that's the type of movie this is aiming for, of course. So things get pretty wild as this movie continues because, like I said, it's kind of a drama kind of thing going on here. So yeah, we have the character's handicap pretty much. So there's that. And yes, of course, it's going to complicate things because that makes it even more difficult. So this Marine is staging this plays, and yeah, he has to do his thing here where he has to make sure he gets out alive, but will he? He is called back to service to rescue this general held by these Filipino guerrillas behind Japanese lines, as mentioned before, attaching this steel prosthetic in place of his missing hand. He and his men set out on a mission, of course, which turns out to be not quite what he was told. So things pretty much become rather complicated because, of course, this is something warlike. So obviously, it's not going to be quite what we expected, of course. And there's that, quite obviously. So anyway, so yeah, this film pretty much goes on pretty crazy in a way. Yes, obviously, it's not going to really be the biggest budget in the world, obviously, folks, as these movies tend to review a fairly low budget anyway. But that's to be expected anyway when it comes to these types of movies. I guess you do have to keep in mind that, of course, it's going to be fairly limited in what they can do when it comes to this quite a few different things, throughout the story. And yes, obviously, you're going to see the characters in the outfits. And yes, of course, they're going to make sure the outfits are pretty accurate in what they were trying to do quite clearly. So I guess when it comes to production value, they did the best they could when it comes to this, making of this movie. And I can see what they were trying to aim for, obviously. But anyway, I can definitely see that this is definitely was written by this with a director that had this producer that had something in mind, of course, and that's fine. And that's the thing, though. It's a pretty watchable film as a whole, in the grand scheme of things. I can see what they were trying to do. I can see what they were trying to do. This kind of thing. Of course, it does have this very American feel by virtue of this kind of a thing by U.S. based post production and whatnot, which clearly does not have to be a bad thing per se, really. Like I said, I can see what they were trying to aim for when it comes to this kind of a thing here, and that's fine. And these types of movies do tend to have a certain charm to them, especially from way back when. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, really, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. So there was that. Anywho, yeah, if you haven't seen this type of movie, I guess I would recommend it. But you have to be one of these types of people that really are into these types of movies anyway. I mean, these movies aren't really my cup of tea, but even I liked it. So you really have to be this type of This type of stuff to appreciate, I suppose, and what they were trying to aim for in the grand scheme of things. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, of course. That's fine. You know, you like what you like. And that doesn't have to be an evil sort of thing whatsoever. And I know this goes into politics, of course, but personally, I don't mind it really because as long as it's been discussing a civil matter, we don't have to be yelling at each other. I know a lot of people these days will just take politics in the wrong way. There's a wrong way and a right way to do this kind of stuff, of course. And personally, I was talking with Silver about it. I think it's fine, of course. And that's the thing, though. So, of course, talking about politics does not necessarily have to be such a bad thing, really, like some people would say. But personally speaking, of course, you can't help it. Talk about politics. It's a war theme movie. It comes with the territory, and that's the thing, though. I do find kind of weird that a lot of people want to talk about these types of movies and just completely avoid talking about politics. It's inseparable. You can't separate these two. These two are just going to be together. War and politics. They're going to be part of the thing. I just don't understand until why a lot of people out there were trying to separate these two things, which I think is weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just me though. Whatever. So anyway, ultimately, I can definitely say that this was definitely a wild adventure of a movie. It's not too shabby in what they were trying to aim for. And yes, of course, I will recommend it, like I was saying, if this is your cup of tea. If it is, then sure. Just don't expect this movie to be in like the most well polished thing in the world because, like I said, it doesn't exactly have the biggest budget in the world. Obviously not. So, like I was saying, we could see our main character. He fashions this prosthetic hook, hence the title of the movie, Steel Claw. So there's that, and embarks on this mission, like a rescue mission, kind of a thing, which leads him and his team deep in this Philippines where love and death will pretty much await them. Who will survive? What will happen? Well, you're gonna have to watch more yourself if you want to find out what's going on and what has happened, of course. Ultimately, I didn't think this one was too shabby for what they were trying to aim for. Of course, it's gonna be a wide ride, as it should be, and that's fine at the end of the day. I don't mind that really. I think it's a pretty damn crazy movie as a whole because, given the nature of it, of course. Anywho, not too shabby in what they were trying to do. Not too shabby in the grand scheme of things. I did think it was a crazy drama of a film. I mean, yes, even dramas aren't really my cup of tea either, really. But for what it's worth, I didn't think it was too shabby. I didn't think it was too bad for what they were trying to aim for, of course. Anyway, so there was that. Ultimately, I can say it's definitely a project that the Invisible want to do, of course. But yeah, so there's that. So it definitely is a thing I wanted to talk about, really, because I want to talk about different type of genres, different type of movies. Even though, like I was saying earlier, the vast majority of what I would talk about is often low budget stuff. And of course, I've spoken about more well known stuff, which of course I get to eventually. But it's just the type of stuff I would talk about, just really obscure stuff anyway. Just want to really talk about different genres. Like for this one, the war stuff. Oh yeah, definitely. I remember this type of stuff was really popular back in the day as well. You do have to keep in mind, folks, I am over 100 years old. So I've seen quite a few discussions about war movies. Have a lot of talk with a lot of people discussing war. Of course, when it comes to these kinds of movies, quite obviously. Anyway, so there's that, of course. A pretty solid movie as a whole. I would think it deserves a recommendation. I would give this film an overall rating of a 7.0 out of 10. It's a 7.0 out of 10 for me. So, of course, as always, thanks for watching and take care. See ya. Oh, yeah, later.